Assassin bug. This insect wears the bodies of its victims like armor. The assassin bug, Acanthaspis petax, hunts ants in parts of Africa and Southeast Asia. It stabs an ant, dissolves its insides, and drinks them. But then comes the truly bizarre part. Instead of leaving the empty body behind, the assassin bug covers itself with the dead ant's husk, sticking it to its back with a special secretion. Then it adds another, and another. A young assassin bug can carry up to 20 dead ants stacked into a strange, swaying tower, sometimes larger than the bug itself. Why build this disgusting backpack? In 2007, researchers Robert Jackson and Simon Pollard tested these bugs against jumping spiders, predators that hunt mainly by sight. The spiders avoided them. The corpse pile doesn't just help hide the bug visually. It can also mask its scent and make it resemble a clump of ants, something the spiders tend to avoid attacking. So this insect doesn't simply hide from predators. It hides inside the remains of everything it has killed. In nature, the best armor isn't always something you grow. Sometimes, you borrow it from the dead. Hermit crab. A hermit crab doesn't own its home. It steals one from the dead. Its back end is soft, curled, and almost completely unprotected, so the crab hides inside the empty shell of a dead sea snail. But there's a problem. The crab keeps growing. Eventually, its old shell becomes too small, and finding a larger one can turn into a brutal housing war. When a good shell appears, some hermit crabs line up by size and swap shells in a chain, each crab moving into the next larger home. Others skip the negotiation entirely and drag a rival out to steal its shell. And the shell isn't always the only thing they steal. Some hermit crabs grab living stinging anemones and place them on top of their shells. Those dangerous tentacles can help protect them from predators like octopuses and fish. The strange part is that the crab doesn't grow any of this armor. It grows nothing. It simply moves into a dead snail's leftovers and carries borrowed weapons on top. So a hermit crab's entire defense system is basically rented. And when the shell stops fitting, the search for a new home begins all over again. Collector Urchin. This sea urchin is already covered in spikes, yet it still carries a shield on its back. Meet the Collector Urchin, Tripneustes gratilla. Its entire body is covered in sharp spines, but that isn't enough for this strange little animal. Using hundreds of tiny tube feet, it spends its day collecting pieces of shell, seaweed, and rubble. Then it holds them over its body like a tiny patchwork umbrella. Why? Scientists believe the cover may help protect it from the intense ultraviolet light found in shallow, clear water. And there's another possible advantage. The extra material may also make the urchin harder for visual predators to spot. Its spines can stop teeth, but they can't stop sunlight. Still, scientists aren't completely sure why collector urchins do this. And the urchin isn't exactly giving interviews. What's certain is that even an animal already built like a walking fortress still reaches for extra protection. Because in the ocean, sometimes surviving means carrying around a little piece of the world as your armor. Boxer crab. This tiny crab fights with two living weapons in its claws. The boxer crab, Libya leptochelis, is barely wider than a pea, yet it carries a live sea anemone in each claw. It waves those stinging tentacles at anything that gets too close, almost like a tiny boxer throwing punches. That's why it's also called the pom-pom crab. The anemones can sting predators and even help the crab collect food, while the crab uses its claws mainly to hold them. But here's the unbelievable part. If a boxer crab has only one anemone, it doesn't search for another. It simply tears the one it has in half. Each piece can heal and grow into a complete clone within days, giving the crab its matching pair again. Scientists confirmed this behavior in 2017. So the crab doesn't find a second weapon. It makes one, because when your favorite weapon can clone itself, why would you ever need to buy another? Veined octopus. This octopus carries its own armor before it even needs it. Meet the veined octopus, also called the coconut octopus, Amphiooctopus marginatus. On an open seafloor with nowhere to hide, it collects halved coconut shells and clam shells, cleans them out, and carries them underneath its body. And carrying them isn't easy. The octopus straightens its arms, lifts its body, and awkwardly shuffles across the sand in a strange movement known as stilt walking. It actually becomes slower and more exposed. So why bother? Because when a predator finally appears, the octopus drops the shells, pulls two halves around its body, and snaps them together like a protective shield. Suddenly, the awkward cargo becomes a sealed armored shelter. Researchers led by Julian Finn documented this behavior in 2009. Most animals grab whatever protection is available when danger arrives. This octopus does something different. It carries the equipment before the danger ever shows up. It's not just hiding. It's planning ahead. A soft, boneless animal crossing open sand while carrying two pieces of shell. Because somewhere in its tiny brain, it already knows. When trouble comes, I'll be ready. Sponge crab. This crab doesn't wear a shell for protection. It wears a living sponge. Meet the sponge crab, Dromia personata. Using its claws, it cuts a piece of living sponge and carefully shapes it to fit over its own shell like a custom-made hat. Then it uses its two back legs to hold the sponge in place. Those legs aren't really made for walking. Instead, they curl upward and end in tiny hooks that grip the sponge like a permanent strap. That's a serious sacrifice. This crab gives up an entire pair of legs just to keep its living shield attached. But the reward is huge. The sponge contains nasty chemicals and glass-like structures. So many predators take one bite and quickly decide the crab isn't worth eating. And here's the strange part. That sponge isn't dead. It's still alive, growing and attached to the crab's back. So the sponge crab isn't wearing a piece of armor it found somewhere. It's carrying another living animal around as protection. Not a costume, not a helmet, a living tenant on its back. Carrier snail. This snail turns the remains of dead animals into its own armor. Meet Xenophora, the carrier snail. As its shell grows, it collects objects from the seafloor and holds them against its body with its muscular foot. Then it permanently seals them onto the shell. And it isn't picky. It can attach old clam and snail shells, pieces of coral, sponges, pebbles, sea urchin spines, and sometimes even fossilized shark teeth. One piece at a time, it builds a bizarre crown of dozens of objects until the snail barely looks like a snail anymore. It looks more like a tiny crawling reef. Scientists think this strange armor may help support the snail on soft mud, break up its outline so predators struggle to recognize it and make it a difficult, unpleasant mouthful to attack. The strangest part, the shell keeps collecting new pieces throughout its life. So this isn't just a shell, it's a history book, made from the remains of everything around it. One piece, one life, one strange moving monument to the dead. Decorator crab. This crab doesn't hide behind the reef. It turns itself into the reef. Meet the Decorator Crab, a group of long-legged crabs covered in tiny hooked hairs that work like natural Velcro. Using those hooks, the crab attaches pieces of sponge, algae, stinging hydroids, and anemones directly onto its body. Soon, its real shape disappears beneath the living camouflage. And despite the name, this isn't about looking pretty. The crab is choosing its decorations like weapons. It favors sponges and anemones that taste terrible or sting, giving it two layers of protection at once. First, the disguise makes predators struggle to recognize the crab. Then, if a hungry fish bites, its costume can fight back. Some of these organisms even continue growing on the crab's shell, making the disguise thicker over time. To a predator, there may be no crab at all, just a strange piece of reef with a little garden growing on it. It's not wearing decorations. It's carrying its own bodyguards. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.